About the Federal Reserve Chair, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and the Chief Judge of the D.C. Federal Court all walked. And so all eyes are now on Judge Cannon. Either she starts contempt proceedings because nobody's going to start it for her. She has the inherent authority as a federal judge to do it herself. And if she doesn't do it, the question is, should she be impeached for obvious bias while she's being sitting as a federal judge? I cover it all. I'm Michael Popok. You're here on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. Take a minute, help us continue to grow Legal AF as a pro-democracy channel. Judge Cannon, let's start from the beginning. Appointed by Donald Trump. She's had a series of things that she has done that have had people question her competency to be a federal judge and her loyalty to the rule of law. She was shortlisted to be Donald Trump's attorney general. When he was in his transition period, her name leaked out. You would think that alone would have her recuse herself from any future Trump matters. No, the opposite. She continued to participate in all Trump matters. She's been the judge for the would-be assassin of Donald Trump and sentenced him recently. She's been the judge on all of the Mar-a-Lago matters. She chastised Jack Smith, the special counsel, recently in a February order and has ruled consistently and never against the Department of Justice or Trump's position. There's even reporting that at the beginning of the Trump Mar-a-Lago case about him taking those classified top secret documents, she was requested by the chief judge of the Southern District of Florida, Judge Altanaga, a judge that I've appeared in front of, and told, you don't really have a lot of experience. You've only been a trial judge for a short amount of time. Maybe you should assign the case and let it roll over to a more seasoned judge. And she refused. Now, there is speculation that one of the reasons she's been bending over backwards to help the Trump administration, and Donald Trump particularly, is especially knowing she was on the short list for Attorney General, is that she thinks she's on the short list to be on the United States Supreme Court. In fact, I just had Representative Jamie Raskin on with me, and where he disclosed to our audience when we talked about the letter that he wrote to the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi demanding explanation as to why they have violated Judge Cannon's order by using information about Jack Smith's report that they successfully had buried by the order. I asked Representative Raskin about the possibility of the violations in contempt and the impeachment of the judge. And here's what he had to say.
That Pam Bondi's DOJ sent to us information that included a progress report from one of Jack Smith's lawyers saying that there was a their business motive, that's what they thought was behind his pilfering of all these documents, including the one that was so top secret, only 6 people in the entire government could see it, one of them being the President of the United States.
Free speech. And he ordered troops to fight an imaginary war in Portland, Oregon, a decision he reportedly made because he was confused by a Fox News clip from 5 years ago that crossed his television screen.
On Sunday morning, Trump told NBC, well, wait a minute, am I watching things on television that are different from what's happening?
Are Trump's acts those of a sane person or of an agent?
And then that, he's brandishing and waving around these documents on
could invoke the 25th Amendment to
airplane, obviously engaging in completely cavalier and promiscuous use of these documents that he kept, in the bathrooms and ballrooms and under the pool tables and ping pong tables at Mar-a-Lago. So in response, the White House has been dragging my name in the mud all weekend, saying Raskin has zero credibility, no credibility. All I did was release the document they sent us by accident, right? So I don't need much credibility to say, here's what the Department of Justice just sent us. Now, look, we could clear the whole thing up very easily. Release Jack Smith's special report, his special counsel report, volume 2. Remember, the first one was released like every other special counsel report in history, but they've not released the one about the stealing of the documents and the ensuing obstruction of justice that took place when Trump refused to turn them over to the FBI. And, we don't even know where all of it stands right now. So basically, we just said, we want to know what were the business motivations behind the taking of these documents, and when are you going to release volume 2 of the special counsel report?
Bathroom comfort and hygiene are things most people hygiene. Move up to 90 toilet days get going to that's day order. So the eyes are watching. The eyes of the world and those that believe in the rule of law are watching Judge Cannon. She would have to bring up this motion for contempt or order to show cause why contempt hasn't occurred in violation of her order on her own. Because there is no longer any independent party in the Trump Mar-a-Lago case. It's now down to his captured Department of Justice and Donald Trump himself. So who's going to raise the issue? That's why judges have inherent authority to raise it themselves. That's what the ranking member, Jamie Raskin, has called for. That's who the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee have called for her to start. Contempt proceedings. And if she doesn't, the next false step would indicate that perhaps impeachment proceedings should be brought against her. When you just look at the line of things that she did, she initially
media or press. I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. They're very dishonest people. That's the way they are. So I'm not against the media. I'm not against the press. I don't mind bad stories if I deserve them. But I am only against the fake news, media, or press. I want you all to know that we are fighting.
Interfered with the Department of Justice under Joe Biden's investigation as to whether there was a crime committed. In Mar-a-Lago, she tried to intervene. She tried to interfere with the search warrant and the search warrant process, and she was reversed twice by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. She refused to step off the case when it was requested by the chief judge because of her lack of experience. She knows that she was on the short list as Attorney General because it was announced and never denied by the Trump administration. She knows that she's rumored to be on the short list for any Supreme Court decision, a Supreme Court opening, and we know she's trying out for that as well. She's handled the assassin case and, of course, ruled against the person that tried to take a shot at Donald Trump. She's ruled against Jack Smith in scathing terms. She's issued an order that's now been violated, and she's not doing anything about it. This sounds to me like a case for impeachment at the House. Now, Representative Raskin was understandably coy about whether when the Democrats get the gavel and Jamie Raskin is made the chair of the Judiciary Committee, whether they're going to go after somebody like Judge Cannon. But Republicans and MAGA are constantly calling for the impeachment of judges like Judge Boasberg, who's the chief judge in D.C., because they don't like his rulings. About the Trump administration, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Here, as I've outlined, we've got a very strong case that should be investigated. And of course, judicial complaints can be made against Judge Cannon that have to be investigated. If I were Representative Raskin, I'd make a referral to have the appropriate judicial committee that sits over the 11th Circuit and over the Southern District of Florida investigate Cannon and decide whether she should be sanctioned or not. And certainly, we should be considering impeachment. Now, of course, the Trump administration and its propaganda minister, Carolyn Leavitt, all they've done is go after Jamie Raskin. Here's Carolyn Leavitt going after Jamie Raskin in his letter to Pam Bondi, demanding to know why she violated the order of Judge Cannon. Let's play the clip.
Does the White House have a comment on a letter that was sent from Congressman Raskin to the DOJ alleging that the DOJ recklessly released damning information in regards to President Trump's documents?
Yes, I saw that letter from Congressman Raskin this morning, who I would add has zero credibility, and this letter was clearly a cheap political stunt. What the congressman did here, Brian, and for everyone in the room who's hopefully not reporting on this as fact, is that he took untrue and salacious claims in a memo that was produced by Jack Smith, who has been completely discredited for his lawfare and his witch hunts against this president, and that information was unverified. It never even made it into the indictment because it was so unverified. And what happened to that indictment anyway? It was thrown out. And Jack Smith has been proven, again, to be a prosecutor on a witch hunt against President Trump. He tried to throw him in jail ahead of the 2024 election. The Biden Department of Justice was fully on board with this lawfare campaign. And in fact, this story that was concocted by Congressman Raskin was so ridiculous. I understand his communications team reached out to some outlets in this room who responsibly said, we're not going to write this because this is just too much. However, of course, MS Now did write that story this morning because they continue to be left-wing propaganda for the Democrat Party. But I think Jack Smith has been proven to be a liar and a fraud. And this is, again, a cheap political stunt from a Democrat on Capitol Hill who I think wants to get himself on cable television.
This is a fast-moving story. We're going to follow it here on Midas Touch and, of course, over on Legal AF. Help us get to our 1.1 million subscriber barrier. We need your help to do it. And now is the time for you to come over to Legal AF YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.
Pam Bondi's photos get thrown immediately in the trash in United States attorneys' offices across the country. Pam Bondi so loathed, so deeply reviled that as soon as she was terminated, lots of DOJ veterans were very quick to take her portrait themselves and just throw it in the garbage. And specifically, one of the things that the DOJ veterans and lots of people working in the DOJ
A new era of wine. Meet Medley Wine Company. Premium.
recounted as a story that Pam Bondi would tell over and over again in her various propaganda speeches and interviews that she would give, that when she started working at the DOJ and she was appointed as the Attorney General, she was walking around the DOJ's offices and she saw Biden's photo and Merrick Garland near somebody's office that just hadn't been removed yet. And she goes, I personally took it. I threw it in the garbage. And then she demoted a very well-liked veteran, a guy by the name of Devin DeBacker, who had been the acting chief of the National Security Division at the DOJ, a DOJ veteran who was beloved, who led the National Security Division. She blamed him, Bondi blamed him for keeping Biden and Merrick Garland's photo up there and not taking it down quick enough. She threw it in the garbage, demoted the guy, and the DOJ veterans and others working at the DOJ did not forget that specific incident at all right there. You know, notably, while there had been, we've been talking about this, a mass exodus of DOJ lawyers and employees. You know, I mean, Bondi ran this thing so horrifically, both in terms of the lack of competence, the lack of diligence, and then also the sheer servility, the being a sycophant to Donald Trump, literally putting Donald Trump's banner on the DOJ. I mean, it was so utterly humiliating. But I mean, she gets replaced with Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche being Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney. And frankly, within that building and within the federal prosecutor community and ex-Fed prosecutor community generally, I mean, this guy is even more despised than she is, because I think people knew that she
unhinged.
Was a bad actor, bad faith person her entire career.
Please help spread the word.
And her entire life, you know, Todd Blanche, up until he became Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney, I mean, he was a former federal prosecutor. He was someone in that community who was actually, I don't think, known originally as being someone who would just go in there and gut the thing that gave him his career, the federal prosecutorial kind of establishment, fraternity, sorority, whatever you want to call it. And he's now someone who got his, you know, start working there, always credited for his career, and then just rips it to shreds. So in many ways, he's even more despised. And, you know, when you take a look at the things that he's done right away, I mean, notwithstanding the, you know, DOJ veterans throwing the Bondi photos in the garbage, I mean, he said things like, we're done with any investigation into Epstein. We're not going to talk about that anymore at all. I mean, you even had Jesse Waters on state regime media, which calls itself Fox, saying to Todd Blanche, who's now the acting attorney general, I don't think that you understand the way people actually feel about the Epstein files. If you think that people believe you at the DOJ and Trump did a good job, even Waters, you know, you don't get much more of a propagandist than that. He kind of checked Todd Blanche during that interview. You just look at some of the things that have been going on that DOJ account, social media account already anyway. I mean, we know that these photos of Bondi were thrown in the garbage because, you know, NBC got photos sent to them by people in some of the offices across the country. But now the DOJ rapid response account is saying fake news to Ken Delaney and posting one of those photos in the garbage And then it says real news, and it's a photo of Pam Bondi, I guess, still hanging. And it's like, okay, well, you found a photo of Pam Bondi still hanging in the main Justice Department building. So you're saying that Ken Delaney and sources we're not giving him, we're giving him a fake photo. I don't even know what the point that she's not the AG anymore. Her photos can be taken down. So like, what point are they trying to, even make here? It's also interesting to see different people trying to jockey for the job as Attorney General, whether Todd Blanche, who's acting Attorney General, will get the nod to try to become the Attorney General. But I've seen lots of other people in Trump's orbit try to assert themselves to get that job. But obviously that was big news at the end of the week. There were some people who were like, well, the reason that she got fired is that she leaked information to Eric Swalwell about an FBI investigation. Investigative file being released. And Swalwell's like, you think I'm talking to Pam Bondi? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not true at all. I mean, I think the real reason was her mishandling of the cover-up of the Epstein files. I think Trump thought she would do it with more competence, and also Trump wanted her to go after his political enemies more successfully because that's been his main priority. And we've seen not just her losing those cases against Trump's political enemies, but also we've been seeing her unable to even get indictments and grand juries rejecting the presentation of a true bill to begin with. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Substack, and podcast. Everybody subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Now, Harry, clearly, I mean, as everybody knows, Harry, former top federal prosecutor. You were the United States Attorney in the Western District of Pennsylvania. You were a lead lawyer, lead prosecutor, and Maine Justice. So you know this community of federal prosecutors. You know people who have either quit, lots of them, or have been fired or pushed out. Everyone talks to each other in that community. So people, on the one hand, happy Bondi's gone. On the other hand, Todd Blanche is viewed as even kind of worse than her. And then, you've got this dynamic playing it out. So, Harry, what do you make of it all, Harry?
A lot. And let's take it in turn. So the Bondi portrait stuff, by the way, fake news, real news, let's say half of them are down in the department across the country. That would be the real news. The ones that still happen to be up there, that's not news. And it really is. I mean, on top of everything else, all the best of the Department of Justice that she completely trammeled and put through the meat grinder. She was just a jerk to the, when I was there, you'd see the Deputy Attorney General walk in the halls, or you'd be in meetings with the AG or whatever. Her contempt, which we saw so vividly when she testified before Congress and had these, juvenile, well, what about your district kinds of non-responses. That was her exact attitude toward everybody at DOJ who for years had gone in to do the right thing. Erez Raveni is a good example here. He was the guy who actually told the truth about the Kilmar Abrego Garcia on March 15th. She not just fired him, but fired him said because he's not being loyal to Trump, obviously meaning either prevaricate or just flat out lie. That's what you have to do. And that's what she communicated. And she communicated such distrust for the lifeblood of the Department of Justice. I was there in the last, at the end of the Garland era, and everyone, it's just how it works there, was just full of such praise and testimonials for the career staff, and she just pissed all over them from day one. On this portrait stuff, it's an interesting kind of part of the department sociology. Whose portraits will a new attorney general choose to put up there? And so Robert F. Kennedy is often well respected. It's an interesting portrait besides. Robert J. Jackson and others. So the Pam Bondi portrait that's now in the wastebasket, I really think she is, as long as there's a memory of her, it's going to be a memory of someone who just in a year did everything they could to destroy all that is important and virtuous about the Department of Justice, the ideal of doing justice without fear or favor. And her portrait, I think, is destined to gather dust in the basement. I don't see a future attorney general saying, yeah, give me the Bondi portrait along with RFK. All right, to Blanche. First, your point is important and well taken. He was an AUSA. So I know so many people in the prosecutorial community. You see these long profiles of Bondi and her people down in Florida saying, what the hell happened to her? But she was obviously over her head from the start at DOJ. Blanche knows the culture, and he came of age in the SDNY. He wasn't a star there, but he was a solid AUSA, meaning a lot of people who I still know worked with him, and they really are, what the F? He obviously knows better. You saw his words at the Conservative Action Committee a couple weeks ago, boasting that nobody has a gun, meaning everyone's been fired from the FBI who had anything to do with the January 6th investigations. That is a breathtakingly corrupt kind of statement. They got rid of people because they worked on, by the way, virtuous prosecutions, but even if they hadn't, because they've done their duty. So the mistrust for him in some ways runs deeper. There is and there's another problem with him that aggravates the situation. He's known as the place where papers kind of go to die. Things gum up in the deputy's office, and he hasn't been really strong at kind of processing things. That's a really big part of the deputy's job. And at least in the past, when you become an acting attorney general, you still keep your deputy responsibilities. So that, in just the terms of the fecklessness or the trains not running on time in DOJ, that's going to be a big challenge. Let me say, I see zero chance that he is nominated for the job. I think he is angling. He wants to be in Emile Beauvais' footsteps, a Second Circuit appointment. But I have to say, he's unconfirmable. It would be a complete unearthing of all the crap that's happened, including when Bondi was in charge. Blanche, recall, along with Emile Beauvais, really has been in the center of everything. Indeed, of late, you could really see this was part of the death watch of Bondi. You could see that he was the one who was out front and talking to the press. There is an occasional rumor that's every once in a while he has tried to be what passes in this administration for a voice of moderation, but he's clearly all in the Roe Trump's barge plan. And he's now, going to want, when there is a new attorney general, that probably means he's out, and he's going to already be thinking of his exit strategy. I think of probably getting a judicial appointment. But as you say, Ben, there won't be fundamental changes. There won't be any kind of hesitation to do these, completely illegitimate, unconstitutional prosecutions. If anything, the opposite. Blanche will want to show he got the job done. Thank God that we had a bulwark in the form of grand juries or career prosecutors who said no. But I just want to say he is, I think, very unlikely to actually get the nod. And I think people in the department expect that this doesn't mean, ding dong, the witch is dead, but it doesn't mean a real let up in the so kind of hostile culture that now permeates the Department of Justice. He'll be the same kind of guy, in some ways a different style, more confrontational, but nevertheless, just the kind of jubilation that this so unqualified and corrupt and willing, to just dripping contempt. That's really who Bondi was as Attorney General is gone. There's a lot of high fives going on all over the country in U.S. attorneys' offices for sure.
Harry Litman, no one would know better than you. Everybody subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers here, and make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel first. Thanks, Harry.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.
MSW Media.
A federal judge has issued a new rule requiring Jeanine Pirro to notify the court when she fails to get a grand jury to bring charges.
Jim Comey has been subpoenaed in the sprawling criminal probe against ex-CIA Chief John Brennan in Judge Eileen Cannon's district.
Attorney General Pam Bondi attempts to flout a deposition subpoena from the House Oversight Committee in the Epstein Files investigation.
And the Department of Justice has suspended minimum work requirements for hiring attorneys. This is Unjustified. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 61 of Unjustified. It's Sunday, March 22nd. We are just 6 days away from No Kings 3. I'm Allison Gill.
Nice. And I'm Andy McCabe. Oh my God, Allison, so much going on. We got the war in Iran. We got inflation. Inflation is back and better than ever. And of course, the midterms. With all that, we want to make sure that we're getting through